So Solomon writes about, right, the prostitute reduces you to a loaf of bread and all those other kind of things, right, in Proverbs. Especially in the world of church, we apply that to men are being turned into the loaf of bread. But the truth is that everybody in the transaction loses.
This is Porn Talk. Here is your host, Eric Zuzak.
Yeah, so all this time, like when that happened, that's 1988, 1989. That's not true. 1998, 1999, something like that. So the day before, this story really starts the day before that. So I'm inoculated, as a kid, I'm inoculated against Christianity, right? But, and I have this, like, I know you hate me, and also I'm still obligated to read this freaking book. So I hate reading the Bible. I know God hates me, so of course I'm not super inclined to talk to him too much because he's just always pissed, right? It's like going to see your manager that you know doesn't like you, right? And of course I don't want to go to church, which is easy for me because I'm a truck driver, so I'm never really around anywhere, right? And when I do go, I know how to smile for the camera and say the churchy things that you expect to hear so that you would think I'm one of you, right? Brene Brown talks about masks and shields, and I was fully stocked on masks and shields. So, well, anyway, so the night before, what's happening is I'm on my way to California in my car. I'm in my way to California to fight about a ticket that I shouldn't have gotten. I got lots of tickets that I really earned, but this one I shouldn't have gotten. But on my way there, I stopped in Wells, Nevada at a truck stop. While I'm looking at the menu at a table, when I flipped it over, there happened to be a map for this whorehouse, and I could drive there today. It's been lots and lots of years. I could drive there today without looking at it because I had been so well trained. I wasn't thinking about that kind of stuff. I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't looking for it. I just turned it over and bam, it was there and it caught me. I turned it over right away and I got up and left, but I can still see the map today. I can still see the map. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I start driving. I got to go to California. I got a couple hours further down the road and broke down in some small town somewhere. And so now I'm in a hotel overnight because it's too late and the shops are closed. I won't get fixed until tomorrow. I start thinking about this map. Of course, now I'm in small town somewhere in Nevada in the desert. I can't do anything about it. So next best thing is, maybe this would be better, I'm going to go to a bar and I'll hook up with that girl because, of course, we all know that all women in bars just are waiting for Steve to walk in. Right? I'm sorry, that's the fantasy anyway. So I'm just about to leave. I got my hand on the door handle. I'm just about to leave. And I hear, do you want to win? Like I hear it like you and I are talking to each other. Do you want to win? Like, well, I don't know what we're playing, but yeah. Like, yeah, I'd like to win. With no more commitment than, like, what kind of pizza do you want to eat? Mm-hmm. So that starts this conversation, which basically is if you want to win, just stay inside. All you got to do is stay inside and you win. No Bible verses, no preaching, no nothing like that. I'm not talking about anything else. It's just if you want to win, stay inside. Well, I finally went to bed. And I didn't go to bed because I wanted to stay inside or I wanted to win. I'm like, if I go to bed, the voice will probably stop talking to me. Right? Because I'm tired of talking about it. Mm-hmm. So I woke up in the morning. The court's not going to push the date for me. So I lose there and I'm pissed about that. I'm turning around to go back then. And I'm coming close to Wells, Nevada. I'm getting closer. And I hear, how are you doing this morning? Like, well, pretty good, actually. I slept actually way better than I expected to. And for the first time ever, I heard something that sounded like somebody was genuinely happy for me. I had never heard that before, or at least I had never accepted that somebody would be genuinely happy for me. But that's what it sounded like. It was like, I think that's because you won. And then I remembered the conversation the night before. Like, oh, yeah, I guess I did win. So the Bible verse is, if you resist the devil, he'll flee from you. I guess it also works if you just go to sleep. So I did win. Well, I'm getting closer to Nevada and thinking about that and how happy I am that I won. And then I start thinking about this map I saw yesterday, and I'm coming back to that town. So I start to get off at the exit for the truck stop, which is also the exit for this brothel. I'm like, did you like winning last night? If you want to win again, all you got to do is stay on the road. And I go through all these gymnastics. Well, I'm just going to get off. And like, why? You're not tired. Why? You don't have to go to the bathroom. Why? You're not hungry. Why? You've already got Mountain Dew next to you. You've got a bunch of them next to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why? There's no reason to stop. Why? You don't need gas, right? And I stopped anyway. So I'm just going to hang out at the truck stop for a little bit. Well, I'll just drive over there. I'll just go inside. So I killed that voice. I made it stop talking to me. I'm sitting at the bar inside there. I'm watching a bunch of like super old people. Like they look like footballs that have been left outside in the desert. While I'm there, the strongest man I've ever met came in. This brothel advertises free showers, like great big sign, right? So truckers will see it from the interstate. And that's a nice deal for truck drivers because you only get a shower for free if you got fuel at that truck stop.
Right.
But you might have to wait a long time, and it might not be clean, and it might whatever. So they advertised free clean showers. Yeah, of course somebody's going to stop, right? That's a lost leader for them. So this guy comes in. He's got his little duffel bag. He's like, you guys have free showers? And so, of course, they start trying to upsell him. And they go back and forth a few times. The strongest man I've ever met and the woman who's selling people. And he finally, like, he's angry now. Like, your sign says free showers. Do you have free showers, yes or no? They took him back. He took a shower, left a few minutes later. And I sat there on the stool the whole time like, oh, I wish I could be that guy.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get up. Well, anyway, so I spent a total of about 8 hours there and drank a lot of super expensive Sprite and ate a really overpriced frozen pizza that they got at the grocery store. And it finally gave in to this walking menu that I've been looking at all day, right? And so I finally picked one and spent a lot of money. So I'm leaving. I'm a few miles down the road from Wells and, from that town. And I hear that really hurt. I'm expecting to hear yelling, screaming, slamming cupboards, like all that kind of stuff. I'm used to that. That's what I'm expecting to hear. I didn't hear any of that. I heard that really hurt. Like that hurt me. Because you and I have a covenant. You understand contract, so we'll use contract, but it's really a covenant, which is a lot stronger. And my side of it is that I'll never leave you or forsake you. And so what that means is that I had to go with you. I sat at the bar with you. I was with you when you went back in that other room. Like I died for that. And so that really hurt. Wasn't screaming, wasn't yelling. It wasn't like finger pointing. I'm trying to make you feel bad. It was simply just open communication, which was weird. I'd never experienced that before. It was just open communication. This is how that made me feel.
And this was on your way home from the brothel?
Right.
Yeah. And I don't know why this popped in my head right now, but when I was young, there was a movie with Dolly Parton and Sylvester Stallone called The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. And believe it or not, it was a musical. It is a strange movie, The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, with Sylvester Stallone and Dolly Parton, a musical about a whorehouse in Texas. And there's a song in the movie called I just remember this from the Texas has a whorehouse in it. Oh my goodness, oh my Lord. I mean, that was crazy. Like, and also just another side tangent too. I had watched this YouTube video that had compiled a lot of the popular TV shows from the 80s and such. And I'm like, I watched every single one of them. The amount of, all those TV shows, that movie that was on cable, The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, all this stuff that we dump into our minds. So, but anyway, I digress. You're telling your story. So you heard this voice that said, that really hurt.
Yeah. So that's unfair fighting, right? I'm expecting screaming, yelling, and instead I have this like open communication. That's just unfair fighting. And that was the beginning of the idea that that Jesus wants to have just a relationship with me. I want to do things with you. I want to, well, I am going to go places with you because we have this deal, right? But also I want you to come places with me. That was the beginning of that idea for me. All the time when I was doing that stuff, so I'm not married at that time, all the time when I'm going to those places, when I'm going to those kind of bars and whatever, I a long time ago stopped looking at the pictures or stopped looking at the bodies and would look at the faces. And what I saw, and in the faces, I looked at the eyes. So what I saw was blank, right? I know how to smile for the camera. I saw people that knew how to smile for the stage.
Right.
That's what I began to see. And I began to see, I'm still doing it. I mean, not right now, but at the time, right? So I'm still doing it, but I'm recognizing while I'm doing it that I'm in a transaction, right? So I'm accepted here only because I have money.
Yeah.
I'm a truck driver. I don't have gobs of money, but I'm accepted as long as I have money, right?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so I stopped driving a truck. I come back to Madison, and Madison, Wisconsin. That's where I graduated high school from, and now I'm like in a town, and I'm going to have to be a part of the community. So I can't do some of the things I've trained myself to want to go do, right? But I also don't want to be around other people, because what if you found out that I look at this stuff? What if you found out that I found out a way that I'm still buying porn or whatever, right?
Right.
I don't want you to know. And so I'm really just isolated and lonely. It was a softball game, actually, that an accidental softball game that began breaking me out of that. Also at that time, I don't talk to anybody. Like every conversation I had was, everything in my life was transactional, everything. The conversations I would have when I was a truck driver, I don't care what the weather's like. I don't care that you got a new house, that you got a new puppy, or that your puppy died. I don't care. I need to know how many doors, what pallets, like when does it have to be there, that kind of stuff. That's it, right? So when I became a contractor, that's what I was doing in Madison. When I became a home improvement contractor, I had to learn how to talk to people. So I had to learn how to have conversations, which was super hard for me. I did it with a tool called FORM, Family, Occupation, Recreation, and M is the message, because I could just let like you talk, like, are you married? Do you live around here? What kind of work do you do? Right? What do you like to do for fun? That's FOR. And then M is the message. And I was in control of whether I delivered the message. Like, let's get together again. I'd like to put your roof on, you know, what, or no, I'm not interested in talking to you. And so I didn't deliver the message. But I had to use a tool to learn how to be able to talk to people. And so then I get married. And marriage is going to make it better, because now I live with someone who's going to want to have sex with me. And won't this be great?
Yeah.
And I've been trained by the stuff that I've looked at and the stuff that I've done, what that means and what kind of activities to expect. So won't this be great?
Yeah.
Well, as it turns out, I found out that women who are real and are not airbrushed don't have the same desires or attitudes that the women who are being paid to behave that way do.
Yeah. Shocker. Hey, Steve, we need to change gears here and wrap up this episode. Let's go into just one more. What's another benefit of pornography? So you
Well,
talked
again,
about
that whole title was meant to be facetious.
sure, of course.
And so the outside of streaming services, that's the social benefit that was real.
Right.
And I discovered it by having to I decided, like, if I'm doing it, I may as well do the research and like find out, right? And give this thing a fair shake. That's the thing that was real. I guess potentially how there's an old dead philosopher from some country who thought things were good if they turned out good. I don't remember what his name is, but basically that was his idea. And so in that attitude, if you look at it that way, then a woman who finds herself about to be evicted or homeless or whatever, I guess guys too, but it's typically women, right, can just perform for a little bit and they'll get some money and then they can stay in their house or pay for school or whatever their thing is. So I guess to a point, that would be a benefit.
But the benefit comes with a big hidden cost.
Right. The cost is, it's not a value for value exchange. Like if I bought your car, I gave you some money and you gave me the car. We both benefited in the transaction, right? This is different. Even if I feel like I benefit in the moment because this feels good to me right now, well, the truth is, like when I spent that $800 that time, I didn't have $800 to just get rid of, right? So that created financial problems for me, like that one event. So it wasn't a value for value exchange. But depending on how somebody looks at benefit, that would be one, is that typically a woman, but a man too, can turn a fair amount of money relatively quickly. And you don't have to go to school.
Yeah. Before we jumped on here, I was listening to a woman that was in pornography for many years. And she said, honestly, at the very beginning, it was good because I got all this money. But then she said she quickly learned that, yeah, she had all this money, but she said she felt really terrible about herself. She, was depressed. And so it's like that money is kind of like blood money, it's hurting other people. And so, yeah.
So Solomon writes about, right, the prostitute reduces you to a loaf of bread and all those other kind of things, right, in Proverbs. But the truth is that who's doing the selling and who's being sold? So I'm having to give up money for fake name Diamond or whatever, right, to play with me. It's so she's selling me and turns me into a loaf of bread because she's using me for my money. But on the other side of that, I'm not developing a relationship with her. I don't even care that I know that her name is not real, but I don't care. I'm only interested in using her for the thing that I can get from it. So especially in the world of church, we apply that to men are being used, being turned into the loaf of bread. But the truth is that everybody in the transaction loses. Everybody is playing with the fantasy of or illusion of intimacy. But instead, what gets delivered for both of us is separation, shame, just hiding, like all that kind of stuff, right? Like I don't want people in my community when I was in Madison, right? I don't want you, another guy at church, to find out I do this thing. Well, the woman that you're just talking about also didn't want other people to find out. She might say she's an actress, but she wouldn't want just everybody to find out that she was a porn actress.
Yeah. And let me jump in there. So when you say they're a porn actor, they're being paid to have sex on camera. It's a prostitute.
Yep.
So one of the other so-called benefits of pornography is, and clearly, like I said, there clearly are benefits because people wouldn't keep doing it if there weren't, is that very temporarily good feeling at the moment of ejaculation, but then after comes mountains of guilt and shame.
Right. The other side of that is when you find yourself in an actual relationship, well, then what? So like I go into my marriage with these, and of course we didn't talk about it because I don't want to talk about all these things that would be like, I don't want women to know that I've spent that many years using women, right? And that's disgusting and what are all these other things. And so I also didn't want to talk to my fiance about it. I finally decided I had to because, like, well, I mean, this is where the relationship's going to end, but whatever, she should maybe find out now before she broken engagement's probably better than a divorce.
Right.
So I decided this will be better for her. I actually told her as a way to sabotage my relationship. That's what I was really doing. I was trying to sabotage it. So that's just like unhealthy thinking. But I have these unrealistic expectations of what sex and marriage is going to be. And because I've never had a relationship, I never had to practice or develop the skill of having those kind of conversations. Because in a transaction, there's very little conversation, right? And it's about like, what toppings do you want on your hamburger? Like, that's it. So yeah, it is true. If we wanted to stretch the word if we wanted to stretch the definition of benefit, that we could manufacture some, but compared against the cost of getting that benefit, no.
Right. And that's a great way to put it, the cost benefit. Like, what there are some benefits to pornography, but are they worth the cost? And there's a huge cost.
Porn does a lot of the same things in the brain that other drugs would do. The drugs I might sniff or snort or inject, right? Does a lot of the same things in the brain. And so that's why we talk about porn as an addiction, because son of a gun, it is. And so the problem is, like, I have these unmet, so I'm always jonesing for my fix, right? If I'm going to be an addict, then I'm always jonesing for my fix. I'm thinking about, where can I get my next fix, right? I can shoot up again when I get off work, and I get off work at 4 today, so I got 3 hours left, and I'm off work, and then I can shoot up, right? That kind of thing. And I'm off for 2 days, and so they'll never know, right? That kind of thing. And that's where, so it puts sex, instead of just being a part of an overall relationship, like the way it was designed to be, and then it works like really, really good. Instead of being a part of an overall relationship, instead, it's this primary focus way up here that everything else becomes subservient to, second to, right? Including relationships, like relationships that I still have, right? So suppose, well, I'm married, but in fact, tomorrow, I'm leaving town tomorrow to fly down to Florida. And so maybe I go and hook up with somebody in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been looking all this time, because I'm going to have freedom. Nobody knows me, like all this kind of thing, right? So if that's an active addiction, holy cow, that's why that kind of thing makes it really dangerous, right? Because what porn does, especially as we progress in it, it artificially elevates, but it elevates sex to some super, like, this is the primary thing I need to get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that title was entirely meant to be facetious, like mocking my opponent. In fact, I wrote it as angry because I realized that of all the things we brought on that hunting trip as an 8th grade boy, I've very, very few times I've been out like, well, I really need a set of dry socks right now. Right. But so I got introduced to porn as an 8th grade boy sitting on a rotted log next to some other kid whose name I don't know. And that thing had a control on my life for a super long time.
Yeah.
So when I started writing that thing, I wrote it out of being like, I really thought about, I am mocking my enemy and I'm fucking going to war. So I did.
So what would you say to someone that's listening right now that is really struggling with this addiction and has pretty much kept it to themselves? They haven't said anything to anyone, but they're just kind of silently struggling. What would you say to that person?
That I understand. Yeah. because I lived it for a long time. Ultimately, it drove me to being suicidal.
Mm.
Probably don't have time to go into that story, but ultimately it drove me to suicidal and ultimately all of the people that I've known, so I've been an ER nurse and I have mental health background. And so I've talked to lots and lots of people who are somewhere on the pipeline of suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter what the researchers say. They're probably super smart people and they've read lots of paper and then they get peer reviewed and that's all wonderful. I've talked to people on the ground who are in the middle of it. They talk about suicide very differently than the people who write about it and read about it. The people who live it talk about it differently. So nobody who is like, I've just shot myself, I just overdosed, I was just about to step off a limb with a noose tied around my neck. None of those people said I was thinking about dying by suicide. No. They're all, I'm going to kill myself. The researchers say like the gentler way to talk about it is that that person died by suicide. Well, the people who live in it, they don't use that language. They use very plain language. I'm going to kill myself.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the reason that we all get there, the route might be different, but where we all land is, I don't have any value.
Yeah. Great point.
And that's where I landed. I don't have any value.
Right. And that's where the whole, Powerful Eric thing came in. I was going to all these recovery programs where the first step is we were powerless over whatever
Yes.
that, but they interpret it as we are powerless. There's
Yes.
a huge difference.
Yeah.
And so then that day came along where I'm like, I'm not calling myself powerless anymore. I'm Powerful Eric now. God don't make no junk.
Right. Yeah. So for me, it came down to who am I as a person? Who do I need to be as a person? About the value thing, like where this began to turn for me is I'm sitting in a room that I'm renting. I'm on a travel assignment. I took that travel assignment, which was going to be 3 months. I stayed for 6. I extended. But I took that travel assignment with the plan of committing suicide on my way home.
Oh, wow.
So I hugged my wife. I kissed my wife. I said goodbye to my kids, all that stuff. Got in my car, went down to Missouri. Like, I'll call you when I get down there. I know how to wear masks. I know how to carry shields. I've been doing it my whole life. So I hugged them and kissed them and like all this thing. They knew that I took guns down with me. It was like, I'm going to go shooting. I'm going to be in Missouri. There are probably other people who'd like to go shooting.
I'm in St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like not shooting in the neighborhood, that's very different. Right. But I'm going to meet some people down there and we'll probably want to go to the range. So I'm going to take some guns. Right. But I also took the gun that I chose because I'm going to go for a walk in somebody's cornfield in Iowa on my way home, make a loud noise, and that'll be the end of it. That's my plan.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting in my room. I'm holding the gun in my hand, looking at it. Like today's not the day. I'm just thinking about the day, right? And began to have another one of those unexpected conversations where and basically that was, I wonder how much value you really have. Well, not any. Like as evidenced by, that's how nurses talk, as evidenced by, I don't have a good relationship with my wife. None of my friends call me when I'm traveling. When I get home, I'm just an interruption to everybody. So none, right?
Yeah.
I like collect a check. I pay my bills. That's my life.
Yeah.
Right. I don't have any value.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter that the patient who I've never met before says, thanks for taking care of me. You did a really good job starting the IV. It didn't even hurt. Like none of those things added value. Like, of course I'm good at my job. Aren't other people good at their jobs? Of course I am. Right.
Yeah.
But that's not value. So anyway, I had to go through like this big, like working through, this is not flipping a switch. And yesterday I felt bad. Today I feel great. It's not that. I did a lot of freaking work trying to like, do I have any value? John Maxwell wrote a book lots of years ago called The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. This is actually Law 3. I didn't know this then, but this is actually Law 3, the law of the mirror. And it says that you have to see value in yourself to add value to yourself. I was on the tail side of that. The tail side of the coin, the negative side, right, is I don't have any value. And so I'm treating myself as if I don't have any value, right? Well, I had to consider, is it possible that I have value that I don't see, that I'm not aware of? So this is analogous to if you go to the beach to go metal detecting, you start with the idea that, well, there might be something valuable out there. So I take the day off and I spend the money to rent the metal detector and all this stuff. I get sunburned and it's all worth it because I might find something really cool. I had to go and look for value inside myself, not the things I'm able to do, not the things I have, not any of that kind of stuff, but value that might be inside me. I had to start from like, well, maybe, just like going metal detecting, like, well, maybe, but if there is, that'll be really cool. I didn't have the idea that'd be really cool. I'm like, well, if there is, that'll be a big surprise. That's how I started.
Yeah.
But anyway, so to do that, I had to treat myself as if I have value, which is, I found out later when I found that book, I found out like that, oh, that is the law. You have to see value in yourself to add value to yourself. So I began treating myself as if I have value.
Love it. Love it. You started treating yourself as if you had value.
Yep. It doesn't mean that I knew that I did. Like, okay, well, just like on the chance. It's the same thing you do for your car. So my son at this point in time is 16 years old. So he's just learned how to drive, right? He's 22 now and married and looks at cars differently. But so at the time he's 16, he's got his first car and the car stops working and he doesn't have any money to fix it. And he's not controlling his attitude very well. So he goes out to the car and beats on it with a hammer, which is not the way that most mechanics fix cars. So he's beating on the hood with a hammer. The car doesn't have any value to him, and he's treating the car as if it doesn't have any value, right? Well, what do you do with your car if you think it does have value? You like make sure that tires have air, you change the oil, right? Make sure the radiator's got fluid in it, like stuff like that. Fill it up with gas once in a while, right? Yeah, give it a bath, right? You do things, probably get them dice on it because every car's got to have dice, I guess, or some weird thing hanging from the trailer hitch. So you do things to add value to the car because the car has value to you. That's what I had to do for Steve. Yeah. I'll just pretend that Steve has value. And
I absolutely love your analogy. I absolutely love your analogy. If you were a car, if you had the car, you would take care of it. You would take care of the engine. You would polish it, clean it, treat it, not with a hammer. You wouldn't bang on it with a hammer. So as a human being, you can treat yourself as if you have value, even if you don't feel like you have value. Act as if, of course you have value. God don't make no junk.
So that's how you change your life in other ways too, right? Says the guy who doesn't run a lot. I don't run a lot. Like that's read ever. But if I decided, well, I want to go and run a marathon, right? But I don't run marathons today. In fact, I bought a car so I wouldn't have to run. But if I wanted to start running, it would really come down to, okay, not what do I need to do to run a marathon, but it'd be who do I need to be?
Yes.
To run a marathon. Well, I would need to be a person who does stuff that marathon runners do. What do they do, right? So I'd find out what marathon runners do, and I would start to be that person.
Yes, absolutely. And then if you start doing the things that a runner does, then what does that make you?
Eventually I become a runner.
That's right.
Right. Yeah.
So, I could talk on this for quite a while here, but we are coming to an end here.
Well, let's go back to the guy you're talking about who is still hiding.
Okay.
Right? Doesn't want anybody to know.
Okay.
So that isolation ultimately drove me to the edge of suicide. That wasn't the first time I picked up a gun. I picked up a gun a lot of times. Like when I declared bankruptcy, right? Take my wife to federal bankruptcy court for a hot date. That's fun to do. Memorable, right? I don't recommend it for a first date. But anyway, so like there'd been lots of times, and every time it was easier to pick the gun up and harder to put the gun down. But as far as the isolation or hiding thing, then find somebody. This is a delicate topic. This is not the same as I broke my leg, it really hurts. I should find a random doctor I've never met before and said, hey, I got like where this bone is sticking out, it hurts there. This is not that, right? This is a deeper thing. That's why we never talk about it. So find the person who you're willing to risk, because you're not going to know this because you've never had this conversation. You have to find the person that you're willing to take the risk. I think that this person will guard my secret, right? And then I think that tomorrow I'm still going to have a relationship with this person. So for me, one of those first people was my friend Jeff. He was my scuba dive buddy.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a very real way, when Jeff and I would scuba dive, in a very real way, his life was in my tank. My life was in his tank, because scuba divers carry air for their partner as much as for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
In a very real way, when Jeff and I are underwater, we haven't done this for a really long time. Scuba diving is really fun. But so in a very real way, while we're diving, Jeff's life is in my hands, right? Or his life is in my hands. So, but for a long time, even though if we're going to talk about diving together, and that's a risky thing, but we're excited about it, I still wouldn't talk about my real thing. So eventually I had to. Like, I had to take the risk, right?
Yeah.
So for the guy that's hiding, that's the first thing he has to do, is find the person that you're willing to take that risk with, and then take it. And, you know, gently at first. Or jump in the deep end of the pool, like whatever. But you eventually do have to get in the pool. Doesn't matter if it's the kiddie end or the deep end. But you do have to have a dive buddy.
Yeah. And that's great advice. You do need to have a dive buddy to dive into healing this, whether it is a best friend, whether it's a spiritual leader, priest, whatever, therapist, coach, to break the silence and take that dive with somebody. And that's where the healing is going to begin. So, Steve, if somebody is interested in learning more about you and what you do, your coaching, what's some of the things that you like to coach on, and how do people find you?
Well, I'm pretty easy to find. So when I'm working with an individual, I help people close the gap between where they are and who they want to be. And I realize that there's a disconnect between what and who, but that's on purpose. Just like we were talking about with runners, right? It's not like, well, you need to start running. No, you need to decide who you are as a person. So for people, I help people to close the gap from where they are to who they want to be. And when I work with organizations, I help organizations create a culture that inspires employee engagement and makes people want to be a part of their cause. So that's what I do. I don't really have a niche, I guess. But I love connecting with people. So this is new for me, right? I've gone from the guy who I'd never have a conversation, and every conversation I do have is about just the transaction, right? To I really enjoy connecting with people.
Right.
So that's been its own journey. But anyway, so my website is maximpact.com, MACSIMPACT.com. And my email is my name, Steve, at maximpact.com.
Awesome. So if you're inspired to reach out to Steve, please do. And thanks for joining us on this enlightening discussion with Steve McElmurray on the quote unquote benefits of pornography.
Yeah.
We delved deep into this challenging topic, and I hope you're walking away with some valuable insights to help you on your journey. If you found this episode impactful, please share it with someone who could benefit from the conversation. And remember, breaking free from addiction is not just about what you're leaving behind, but also about the powerful person you are becoming. Until next time, I'm Powerful Eric, reminding you that change is possible and you have the strength to make it happen. Stay strong, stay powerful, and I'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening. If you're struggling with porn or sex addiction, reach out to Eric at powerfuleric.com.